Canada and the U.S. are once again talking trade after Ottawa pulled the digital services tax. But it's not the only irritant for Donald Trump. Canada's supply management system has been criticized for years. For more on this, let's bring in William Pellerin with McMillan. He joins us now to talk some more about this. Thanks for your time today.
Great to be here.
So we know Ottawa aims to protect the system, but do you expect Washington to pressure negotiators on this?
Absolutely. I think that dairy and Canada's supply management system writ large has been a major irritant for the United States for many years. It's probably the largest trade irritant that the U.S. has left with Canada. And I think we would be very lucky, or the government of Canada would be very lucky if it managed to avoid anything more on that sector, certainly.
Okay, so the law most recently passed to shield the system, will it do any good?
I think it will certainly signal that dairy is off the table, or signal to the United States that dairy is off the table. Canada has said so repeatedly. More recently, Minister Leblanc reiterated again that supply management and dairy quotas were not to be lumped into a broad negotiation on trade. I don't think ultimately the law that was just recently passed to kind of handcuff the government on trade with respect to supply management will hold up in any reasonable way if the United States pushes really hard.
Does U.S. have similar protections for its own agricultural products?
Not really. There are some certainly large subsidies that the United States offers to its system. I think in many cases, Wisconsin dairy farmers would love to have what Canada has by way of a supply management sector that really protects and shields the dairy farmers, but also the poultry and the egg sector.
Why do you think that we have the challenges with our agriculture that they do not? We worry about oversupply driving down costs, our farmers not sort of getting what they need to replant or to reproduce. But why is our problem so specific, and why does the U.S. not face the same problem, or do they?
Right. I mean, the Canada supply management system is something that we built over many, many years, and the farmers depend on it. I mean, it is really foundational to the small and medium-sized farms being able to continue and exist in this country in the way that they just don't in other countries, right? This idea of what the dairy sector, for example, calls kind of the three-legged stool of controlling production, pricing, and imports in order to maintain the viability of the small farms in Canada. And that has drawn the ire of our trading partners because, again, they don't have access to the Canadian market to sell supply managed goods. The tariffs are extremely high, and the quota that we offer as part of our trade agreements, or the limited access that we provide to other countries through our trade agreements, just generally doesn't do very much at all. And so it's caused a lot of litigation, a lot of irritation by our trading partners. But generally, it's very much appreciated and enjoyed by Canadian farmers.
So what do you think Ottawa would consider if it was on the table, or the U.S. demands that it be put on the table as a compromise in this situation?
So I think right now, there's really a number of different things. There's probably three issues that could be on the table with respect to dairy and supply management, right? So the first is, how much quota do we allow? And by that, I mean, how much product can come in before the tariffs apply, right? So we negotiate a quota with the United States. So the amount of production that can be imported into Canada is one item that could have been on the table. The second is, beyond that quota amount, what will the tariff be if you exceed the quota? Right now, these tariffs are about 300%, for example. So very little product comes in out once the quota has been achieved. And then the third piece is actually who gets the quota. And this is the issue that's been litigated more recently by the United States and has really drawn their ire. And that's the issue that reserves quota here in Canada for processors or what's known as further processors of products. So retail establishments, for example, grocery stores are not able to really access that quota and actually import U.S. yogurts and cheese and milk and all sorts of other dairy products. So those would be the kind of the things that would be open for negotiation if the government was willing to put it on the table. And maybe that's what the U.S. will require in order for Canadian tariffs on steel and aluminum and autos to ultimately drop. So it really puts Canada in a difficult situation. There's no question about it.